Hello, art classes. Mr. Graziano here. I'm going to explain the diagonal enlargement method. We've used it in a number of classes, but I want to show you what the basics of that is. So let's say I've got a rectangle, and I've got three different rectangles here. Okay, obviously this one here is almost close to being a square. Here's kind of a fatter rectangle. Here's a longer rectangle. Okay, so if I want to make this rectangle only larger, I want to keep the same proportions, we have what's called the diagonal enlargement method. And how that works is this. Basically, if I take my rectangle, and let's say I want to make it larger, okay? If I lay it down here in the corner, like that, and I draw a diagonal line from corner to corner here. So I'm going to take some kind of a ruler or a straight edge, and I'm going to lay it right here and go from corner to corner diagonally and have a line that extends out here. So let's say that line comes to about, oh, it's not dark enough. Let's make it a little darker. So here's a line that goes from corner to corner. Here's my line, okay? Now, if I take a point and put it anywhere on that line, like let's say right there. Now if I go to draw that line straight down here, probably want to use a ruler for that or something to make sure the line's straight, you know, a piece of paper. And then if I draw the line straight over right here, what happens is I just made a rectangle here that's the same proportion as this little rectangle, only larger, okay? So you can see again, I'll just kind of make one here. So let's say I've got a square, okay? And then I take a ruler or something and I draw a line right through the middle. I've got a clear ruler here, let's use. So if I draw a line right through the middle diagonally across anywhere, and let's say I stop right there, okay, and I draw this line down and this line over, then I connect this side to this side, I've just enlarged this square and made it bigger, and it kept the same proportions. And if you don't believe me, let's do it one more time, okay? So right here, let's take another rectangle. Let's do it vertically this time, okay? So here's my rectangle there. I'll just kind of trace around it. And then I'll draw a line diagonally through here. So I'll lay a ruler right there and enlarge that. And if I keep going, I can go as big as I want, but I'm just going to stop right there. Draw a line straight down here, over here. Of course, I'm doing this freehand. It's a little sloppy, but you get the idea. So I've just enlarged this rectangle, made it bigger, and kept the proportions exactly the same, okay? So now let's say this. Let's say I've given you a big sheet of paper like this. Actually, that's pretty small. I'm talking bigger piece. But let's say we went this big, and I want to make this rectangle as big as I can get it on this page. Okay? So if I lay it right here, okay, right down in the corner, then I take my ruler and I go diagonally from corner to corner. It's going to go all the way across, and eventually it's going to hit the edge of the page right there. Okay? So this line is already here. All I need to do now is draw a line right here and right there. And if I cut the paper right on that line, throw this piece of paper away, this rectangle here is going to be the same proportion as my small rectangle. Okay? So what I'm going to be doing is this. I'm going to show you, if you have a drawing, if you've got a picture and you want to put a grid on your picture. Let's say this is, I'm just going to do a real tiny version here. Let's say this was my drawing. On this picture is a picture of, I don't know, let's just make up something really quick. Something that looks kind of like a chicken, okay? So there's a chicken like there you go. And there's my chicken. Now I want to draw that same chicken, only really big. So what I'm going to do here is this. First, I want to make this piece of paper the same proportion, okay? So what I'm going to do is draw that diagonal line, like so, all the way over to there, however far I want to go. Now, if I keep going over to the edge, it runs off right up here, okay? Well, then I draw a line over here, so I guess I'll do that. I'll get a ruler, make sure the line is somewhat straight. Actually, it should be straight, but it doesn't have to be 100% precisely straight, but there we go. And then what I do is I take the paper now, and I'm going to cut this part off. Right there. Okay? So I've just made this piece of paper the same proportion as the small piece of paper. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a grid on here. So how do I do a grid? Well, usually we do this bigger, but I'm just using a real small sample. So if I take this grid and if I take this piece of paper and I fold it up like that, then I fold it up like this, okay? I just made little folds that put some crosshairs through my picture there, okay? Now what I could do, now this is just a real simple grid. I'm just gonna go over those crosshairs right there and over these crosshairs right there. So I've just divided my square into 4 equal squares, okay? I'm gonna do the same thing with this. So what I'm gonna do is fold it, crease it, fold it this way, crease it, then I open it up, and I've got these crease lines. Now sometimes when the paper lays flat though, the crease lines kind of disappear. So what I like to do is draw on top of those little crease lines. So I like to use a colored pencil, then I can see a little bit better. And I'm just going to put some red lines right there. So I just made this grid right there. Okay. So let's say I want to enlarge this chicken onto the grid. Well, maybe I'm going to say, you know, there's more detail here. I want the grid to be a little smaller. So instead of 4 big squares, I'm going to go with 16 squares. So these are going to be divided into 4 more squares. So how do I do that? Fold this up. Okay. Fold it this way. And I'm going to fold it 2 more times. I'm going to fold it here. Crease it. Okay. Now it's getting kind of small and hard to fold. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to fold it this way. So now I've got that crease now a few more times. So now I've got 16 squares in there. They're hard to see. So what I'm going to do is draw that with a pencil right now. I'm going to take my red pencil and put a grid right there like so. Okay. And now I've got 16 squares. I'm going to number them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll go with letters here. A, B, C, D. Okay. Now I want to do that same thing to this big piece of paper. So I'm going to fold it again, like I did before. I'm going to fold it 2 more times. Fold it this way. Crease it real deep. Now it's getting kind of thick. I could fold it this way, but the paper is getting kind of thick. So I'm going to go like here and fold it this way. Voila. I open it up. And now I've got 16 squares again. Okay. And I'm going to take my ruler and just draw a line over those. Because, you know, when the paper flats out, the creases kind of disappear. So I like using my red pencil because I can see that good. And that way when I start drawing with my pencil, I won't get confused between my grid and the lines that I want to copy. Okay. So I put my grid on like that. The grid should be close, but if it's not 100% accurate, it's still okay. Okay. So there we go. I've got this grid. I'm going to number that. 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. Okay. Now, when it goes to transferring this, I'm going to use a regular pencil. Now, when you look here, look at the chicken up close here. You can see that right here at halfway between here and here is kind of where that little comb meets its head. So I know right there is where that comb needs to be. And I can see there's like 2 humps in here. There's like a hump here and there's a hump there. Okay, and then there's a 3rd hump that comes down about here. Now, the circle of the chicken's head right here. Okay, now it goes about right here. It starts way down low. It comes up. It leaves this about halfway, and then it leaves over here at about this spot. Comes out of this square. Okay, and then there's this little hump down here. I don't know what you want to call it, the little wiggly part. And I'm doing this kind of a thing. Now look at the beak. The beak's starting about here. It goes to this part here. Okay. The beak is going right through that intersection. Do you see this intersection right there? It's going right through that intersection. It's coming out to about this spot. Then it goes up to about here. Then it comes right down to that corner. Look at that. So it's coming right down to here. And it's coming up to about this spot. Then he's got this thing that runs right along that line. So right along here is where that's running, and so on. So you get the idea. Now, obviously, I'm doing this kind of fast, and it's just like a little doodle, so it doesn't matter that much. But let's say you're working on a portrait or something, you'd want to be a lot more accurate. So sometimes what I'll do if I want to be more accurate, I'll redivide the squares even smaller. So let's say I want to get this eye in there. So I redivide this square right here. I'm going to redivide that even smaller. That's this one right here. Okay, and I can see the eye is right at about that halfway point. So there's the eye. Got the idea? So it's pretty basic. I'm just going to darken it in so you can see it here in the video. So what I wanted to show you is how to make a rectangle, the diagonal enlargement method. That's making a rectangle the same proportion as another rectangle, only bigger. Okay? And I did that earlier. And then what I'm doing is showing you how I would then make a grid by folding my paper up and then doing this. Okay? And here's one that I did of a regular picture here. I did this as a photo of me. And what I did was I first made a diagonal enlargement here. Bigger. Okay? So these two rectangles are the same size. Then I drew the grid on here. Notice I drew it in blue. I folded this up. I drew it in blue. Okay. I folded this one. I drew it with lines. And you notice in here, you're going to see some smaller grids. You can see a little bit close. I put some red lines in here because I really wanted to make sure I got the nose and the eyes and the other features correct. Okay. So you got to be more exact. Obviously, you want to be more exact if you're working on a portrait than if you're working on a cartoon chicken. Okay. So that's how the diagonal enlargement method works. And then also you can see the grid method of how to enlarge a drawing and keep the proportions the same. Because it is difficult to draw this larger and keep the proportions the same. It's just difficult. So this little method I use called the diagonal enlargement method and also a grid system. Okay, thanks. We're going to use this for a lot of different projects. Just wanted you to make sure you understand it. All right, take care.